Welcome to the Cyber FOA. This is our first economic report. The company requested that these reports be kept confidential and only available to franchisees. So this report will be with trademarks down, and I will not be mentioning the name of the company. These reports will be apolitical, meaning we are not going to get into the politics that seem to keep franchisees from being effective in making change happen. We are all fellow franchisees and are facing the same problems. The economics of our business have short-term and long-term consequences. We will be talking about a very real problem that has bad immediate consequences and even worse long-term consequences. The company is going to be paying 1.5 cents for gas and a graduated split on profits going forward. Neither of these are adjusting for inflation. Not adjusting for inflation over time has devastating consequences on the overall profitability of this business for franchisees. Understanding inflation is important if we are to understand what is about to happen to our business. We need a benchmark to help us understand. An easy benchmark is minimum wage. It is easy to find a history of the minimum wage. The inflation story really begins in 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve, but we will begin in 1972 when the country went off the gold standard. Prior to 1972, the currency had intrinsic value, meaning it was convertible to gold at $35 per ounce. After 1972, our currency became what is known as fiat. Fiat currency has no intrinsic value and is worth whatever it can fetch in a free market. When the government prints more, the value of all of the currency declines. This is called inflation. Inflation is the equivalent of a tax and generally hits the folks on the bottom of the economic ladder the hardest. Everybody has heard of the gold standard. In this example, we will be looking at the gold standard, and just for fun, we will be looking at what I call the Snickers standard. Snickers is the gold standard of candy bars. In 1972, the minimum wage was $1.60 per hour. A Snickers bar sold for 7 cents in our stores. A minimum wage worker could buy 22.85 Snicker bars for 1 hour of work. In 2010, the minimum wage is $7.40 per hour. A Snicker bar sells for $1.09. A minimum wage worker can buy just 6.78 Snicker bars for 1 hour of work. If the Snickers standard is true, then the minimum wage has lost 70% of its buying power since 1972. That can't be. John's got to be wrong. Let's take a look. To have the same buying power in the Snickers standard, the minimum wage would have to be $24.91 per hour. Okay, so maybe it's just Snicker. Let's take a look at the gold standard. Okay, minimum wage in 1972, $1.60 per hour. Gold, $35 per ounce. A minimum wage worker could buy 0.0457 ounces of gold for an hour of work. In 2010, minimum wage is $7.40 per hour. Gold is $1,000 per ounce. A minimum wage worker can now buy just 0.0074 ounces of gold for 1 hour of work. Using the gold standard, for the minimum wage to have the same purchasing power in 2010 as it did in 1972, minimum wage would have to be $45.70 per hour. Using the gold standard as a benchmark, the minimum wage has lost 84% of its purchasing power since 1972. Being from Detroit, here is a trivia question. How did the UAW ever negotiate a $74 per hour wage for its members? The answer is it didn't. What it did negotiate for was an inflation adjustment for their wages yearly. Inflation can be a silent business killer. Our agreements have always been a percentage of profits. A percentage of profits adjust with inflation. Moving to a hard number like 1.5 cents means that over time, that 1.5 cents will have little or no value. A graduated split agreement means that every store will be at the highest split level over time. Over time, these agreements will leave this business as unviable. You might say, I don't care, I have a 2004 agreement. If the franchisor could markedly increase their income by getting you out and a new franchisee in on the 2006 agreement, do you think they might try? By raising the level of tension, they may succeed in driving some folks out. Do you see anything like that happening now? This ends our report. This is the type of in-depth report the CyberFOA will be giving beginning April 1st. Franchisees will be encouraged to go to the chat room to discuss among themselves what they have seen. Some may agree with the report, others may not. It is clear that we as franchisees need to find a new course of action if we are to make positive change happen. Franchisees must register in order to open these reports beginning April 1st. Until next time, this is John Irvine.